Welcome to today's show on Off the Record, and thank you very much for joining us. Today is a very exciting opportunity for us to meet someone I really admire and obviously have seen his brand around Zambia. So once we mention him, you guys will have a good understanding of him. But as usual, what we do on this show is we leave the titles at the door and we get to know the people behind him. So tonight's guest is someone who's had a decade in helping shape the Zambian manufacturing space. He's an entrepreneur, an advocate of local industry, and a leader whose voice has influenced not just me, but the nation in terms of conversation and economic growth. But beyond the boardroom, he's also a father, a mentor, and a man whose journey has begun a long time before some people even knew manufacturing could be done in Zambia. And I'm very, very proud and excited to have you on the show, Mr. ASHU SAGAR. How are you, sir?
It's good to be here.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for coming through and making time in your busy schedule. So I thought maybe before I jump in and get into some of the interesting questions, may I pour you some coffee? I'm an advocate for coffee and trying to encourage you to drink some as well.
Yeah, let's have some, right?
All right, perfect. All right, let me pour you some. Okay. So you said 1 sugar?
1 sugar and milk.
Yes, the milk's in there.
That's good. That's fine.
Perfect.
Thank you. Never fill a coffee mug to the top.
Ah, where is that?
Always a bigger danger to spill it.
That's true. That's true. Okay. Okay, well, that Bruce.
Must always have the policy that there's more where that came from.
This one, oh yes, for some people.
So you don't have to fill it.
Exactly. Well, I hope you have a second cup before we're done. All right, great. So while we're waiting for the coffee to brew, I thought maybe we could entice the audience by talking a little bit more about, you know, who you are in terms of the early part of your life, how you started off, where were you born, you know, some of the influences you had in your childhood. So maybe if you could share with us a little bit more about your home and maybe where you grew up in the beginning.
So I was born in Ndola, right? My first few years I grew up in Chifubu.
Okay.
My father was a teacher at Chifubu Secondary. So obviously, as a toddler, I can't remember too much. But then, having grown up, I think all my life in Ndola, went to boarding school and came back to Zambia when I was about 17. I got a job as an accounting clerk and worked my way through becoming a qualified accountant. And I think at the age of 21, I was probably the youngest at that time. As a qualified associate of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants.
Wow.
And went on to do my ACCA, became part of ZICA, carried on working in the financial sector. And in 1999, decided to start off Caribbean Beverages, which is the owner of the brand Aquavita, with a friend. And it's been no looking back since.
That's amazing. So what made you pick, I mean, obviously the accounting background, I didn't know you were an accountant, by the way, but through that transition from the financial sector.
We live and learn.
That's very surprising. But what made you think of being a young person, if I got the story right, from your 20s, moving on to starting that business? Why beverages? I mean, you could have picked so many different industries. Was it because of location, or what gave you the inkling?
No, I mean, look, Zambia at the time was, I think in the 90s, you would seeing early 90s, you would see a transition towards more manufactured goods within Zambia. What started happening in like 95 and above, you started seeing, especially in the beverage sector, was people trying to develop products for local consumption.
Okay.
And I think it became one of the, I would say, not an obvious choice, but something that showed potential for growth very quickly. But for us being in Ndola, where we saw the growth was the market across the border in Congo in those days. So I think that was the basis of the decision when we saw that, look, set up this industry in Ndola that will service the DRC and Zambia. The other manufacturers that were there for beverages at the time were from Lusaka. So originally we started as a juice manufacturing company.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
And we started with fresh juices, and we started moving along what we called a cold chain delivery system. Now, I think at the time, Zambia was not ready for that, where you have a high content of juice, low preservatives, fresh juices that needed to be refrigerated from point of manufacture to point of sale. And we quickly learned that the system would not sustain that and people would not adapt to it. Like we were hoping our distributors and everyone will adapt to the cold chain and keep stuff refrigerated. So what we started seeing was cheaper quality synthetic juices starting to take the market. So we introduced that as well. And a lot of it was going to the DRC at the time, right? And locally. What I think, so it could have been the obvious choice, and then you look at our transition to water, which came actually by accident. And as we were exporting, I think in those days to the DRC, we kept having inquiries for water to be added to our loads because there was no drinking water, packaged drinking water in the DRC. So what we would do is we'd buy out from one of the other small manufacturers, load our trucks, and send water. And then we started seeing that, look, hey, there's a bigger opportunity here. And that's how, I would say by accident, to say, it's time to do this ourselves. And when we started Aquavita in 2004, it just exploded.
Wow.
It was just a different story.
Wow.
I mean, at the time, there was only Manzi, really.
I remember Manzi,
in those days, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so many more manufacturers now since then. But what happened then with, because we did something different. I mean, we differentiated in packaging, we differentiated how we presented the product, how we delivered the product to shelf. There was a lot of things we did very differently, and that really gave us a foothold in the market.
Competitive edge. So would you say, maybe just going back to the childhood part, what were your best memories that you remember? Because I think Indola's gone through some changes quite a bit. And I know we, at some point, were quite a big manufacturing hub, and I'll go into that a bit later. But from your childhood memories, what things you positively remember or not so positive remember from your childhood that kind of spurred you on to say, let's set up here in Ndola because of the economics?
No, I mean, some places are just home, right? And that you have to take it from that perspective.
Yeah.
Ndola is home, right? And you need to also understand that when you get that sense of security, you realize that's where you're supposed to be. When you say one of the best childhood memories was probably no potholes when we were cycling to school.
True.
But no, I mean, Ndola is a wonderful city.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate that it went through what it did in the 90s, 80s and 90s in terms of stagnation. But, it still has a lot of potential.
Yeah. I definitely believe that. And were there any mentors or inspiring people? Because I mean, you are that for, say, our generation. I always pass with Vitanda just for inspiration, count your trucks and see the growth from the outside. But what was it like for you being a young entrepreneur? Because you're 20, started a business that's quite pioneering.
I wouldn't say I don't think I would say I had really a mentor to guide me or tell me, or show, I just think some things are inbuilt. A lot of people are lucky in life to have mentors and people who, guide them in business. But I think for me, when it came to business, I just knew I had to work for myself at some stage. I was not the type, and I am not the type to take orders from anybody.
Yeah.
So, it only lasts so long when your personality just does not allow it.
True. And was your dad supportive? Because he was a teacher. And,
so, I mean, my dad retired in 1995, and he wasn't here when I actually started the company, right? He had gone off. And he'd been in Zambia for, 26 years. He was actually he still probably holds that record as the longest serving teacher in Chifubu Secondary for that period. For a long time. He was from when he came to Zambia, and that's where he signed off. So my father was like, just a simple civil servant. And for me, I don't think, he didn't have any, I'm sure maybe he was a bit worried because in those days it was like, you get a salary, you're happy,
Yeah, that's what I was saying, yeah.
But he never discouraged me. No, never at all, not at all. And I think it wasn't even a question where there was a discussion. Oh, this is what you're doing? Okay, good. That's it. I think he would keep his reservations to himself.
Yeah.
If he had any.
But he probably knew you wouldn't take no for an answer. Yeah. All right. No, that's great. That's great. So just a last question on the childhood aspect. I mean, were they, because this is part that I'm journeying through sometimes and talking to other people in their earlier phases that we maybe forget as you get established. But were there any major challenges setting up your business that you remember, be it on a personal level, being young, I don't know, trying to penetrate the Congo market? Any challenges in business to get the business to where it was?
Well, I mean, look, you see, in those days, there was, I mean, I think even the access to money was probably your biggest challenge. Second was access to skills, which also today seems to be a problem. But you couldn't set up a sizable business because there just wasn't the money to do it, right? So to raise financing, I think, was part of the biggest challenge that we had in terms of starting the business. Markets, to an extent, like when I said we started as a juice company, became overtraded, undercut. But I must say this, that when God closes one door for you, always opens another.
Sure.
And that you have to have that firm belief, right? And that's what I said, water happened by accident. And we progressed from there.
So do you feel that's kind of better now? Because there was that stagnation you talked about in the 80s, 90s. But like someone set up a business now in, say, the beverage space, do you think they would have the same conditions or better or worse?
Well, I think now there's a couple of things. If you really want to do something right, the entry barrier is quite high. So the money needed to set up a business like ours would be quite considerable at this time. There's still, if you want to be a small player and you come in, you're not going to be, the industry has changed in our space in the last 20 years, like tremendously. The kind of players we have now and the kind of muscle they have, and to enter into their market, in our market, I think it becomes very difficult for a smaller entrepreneur. Not that it can't be done. There is a lot more money out there than what used to be. I mean, if you look at how our cooperating partners are funding small business, how there's money through some of the funds that I think
the grants and things, yeah,
with banks, non-secured loans some of the banks are giving now, which never used to be there, right? And I think a lot of that is different now. So it's probably easier to set up a small business, but a lot harder to set up our kind of business.
To scale it to that level.
To scale it.
Yeah.
Or to make a meaningful impact, right?
I hear you. And that's where the economics of scale really work to your advantage, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, economies of scale is one thing. I think early market entry is another. But, we have a lot of customer loyalty. There's a lot of new brands that are on the market, but I think we've stuck to our quality, we've stuck to our message, our packaging, and I think that has let us, retain customers. It's nice when you walk. I mean, I spent some time in Lusaka, and there's people who say, well, yours is the only brand we buy here. I won't say some of the other things they say about other brands, but they're so loyal that move from Ndola to Lusaka, and this is what they do.
True. And I think, I don't know about anyone else, but I definitely have that level of patriotism. Not just me, but some people I talk to. We go to Vitanda for most of our shopping, even, as you know, with the lodge business we had. Would come through, buy from you because we knew you're in dollar bred and born, and support the economy here. But I'm not sure if that's, do you feel like that's loyalties something other companies also hold, or do you think this reputation we heard of Zambians just being price conscious and they'll jump to one brand to another?
No, look, I mean, I'll tell you one thing about our brand. We've never overpriced ourselves, and I think people also learn to respect you when they see another brand charging so much because they can have a position in the market or something. And we have been consistent for X number of years since the beginning, where is the price fair, right? And we stick to it. Don't overcharge a customer, one. Two, maintain your quality, right? So when you say loyalty, I think loyalty comes from consistency. And that's what I think hasn't changed for us. We may not be the biggest player in Zambia at the moment, but definitely I think there's enough people out there that realize that our brand has delivered a quality product for 22 years. Right?
Definitely. 2 decades, yeah.
Yeah, and it's always been consistent in terms of its pricing on the shelf. Today, if you go into ShopRite, we're probably one of the the cheapest, because we have a certain policy on not, maybe others have got higher cost structures, but we have, kept our pricing towards the market consistent, affordable, and we've kept our quality right.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's for sure. Very consistent. And just on the same, because I'm also curious, because we're angling one of our businesses into manufacturing and facing a lot of headaches as a small-scale operation. But I was quite curious to ask you, like, in terms of challenges that you're facing. Okay, there's the usual Zambian climate, external issues, and then there's how do you balance trying to run a business which can demand 7 days a week sometimes from you, to juggling your personal and your health. Yeah, not necessarily in terms of private life, but just like, how does the man use up his time? What does a week look like? How do you make sure you don't get burnt out? All these things that can happen along the way to ensure you have that 2 decades of longevity.
No, times change. Like, look, when we started the factory, I was working probably 18 hours a day, probably 19. Those were difficult times. But I think when you get to a certain level, you also learn to let go and get the right people to run the business. And I think we've been very successful there in terms of getting the right people to run the business, right? And I'm not... I think I would put in my, at the factory, I would put in my 9 hours a day when I'm here, but I won't put in now the 18 hours that I used to, right? So I think you change with the times.
It's transition.
That's how you have to realize when to change.
Yeah,
adapting to your, you can build a business to a certain level, but when you need to realize also when your contribution to it is also limited, right? That no matter how much more you put in, is it the incremental value?
Point of diminishing returns, eh?
Correct.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, you have to also let go that where you have to realize that somebody else can actually do what you've been doing, so you can concentrate on other things.
Do you find that's a bit hard? I'm a bit of a control freak.
No, it was maybe hard in the beginning, but then I think you realize at the time when you find the right people, I think it's okay.
Yeah, things get done. Yeah, that's interesting. So that kind of connects with this aspect of your other interests of maybe being ex-president in the manufacturing space. Behind the title, behind the prestige, they're hiding secrets, struggles, and stories untold. Meet the faces you know, but what about the people behind the masks? Who are they? Off the record.
For me to have food, it was a problem.
I was out of school for a year. I went to do some piecework, very long piecework.
My career didn't start all rosy. Of course, started on a faster note at some point.
I've never drank in my life. I tried once and I was a bit noisy.
Yeah.
So I decided,
that was the end of it.
Yeah, I decided, no, I'm not going to drink.
Yeah.
I'm one of those few that after completing grade 4, I only stayed for 5 months and I was already in tertiary education.
The question came and I said I want to be president. I was laughed at.
I just wanted people to understand the implications or the things that happen when one is about to have a stroke.
And I want to confess that at one given time, I nearly crucified myself.
The journey, the struggles, the triumphs, it's time to get real. From the operating room to the boardroom, from the podium to the pulpit, we're going off the record. Unfiltered, unscripted, unforgettable. Would you mind expanding on why did you take on the presidential role at the time you did for the Zambia Manufacturing Association, and what led to that, and how did that impact you?
So I think I need to go back a bit when looking at my advocacy journey, which started, I think, around, I would say, 2017, when I took over the presidency of the Ndola Chamber.
Yes.
And basically worked to try and transform it into something that was meaningful. And I think with the team we had was quite successful. And then I was on the board of Zambia Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which I still am. And further from that, I think ZAM as a presidency was not really something I had on the horizon until maybe 3-4 months before the election for the AGM for ZAM.
I see.
And I thought, well, actually, it might be a good idea to go and do something different.
Wow.
In advocacy, which was very sector-based. And I knew manufacturing, and I knew, I think, what the industry needed, the sectors needed. And I think that was part of the strength of how you saw ZAM grow in the last 4 years.
Okay. So were there any challenges there? Because again, now you've got the company you're running, you're also needing to be somewhat...
No, so I think by that time I had developed a good team for the company, and we had a system of working. But I think, you have to put your heart and soul into something that you've taken on. So like I gave you the example of Ndola Chamber, I put my heart and soul into doing something meaningful there. When I got to ZAM and I took it over, I put my heart and soul in. If you're going to do it right.
Yeah.
And yes, it may have been a bit stressful in terms of balancing the advocacy side and being the voice of manufacturing for the country and economic development, and then also running your own business. But somewhere you find the balance in all of it. You have to find the balance in all of it, and you have to have systems in place.
That's a big one. I was just reading a book called, what was it called? It was something about entrepreneur operating systems. I've forgotten the name, it fleets me, but they were talking about how it's important to work on the business than just working in the business. And I find in a lot of cases, particularly in Zambia, we're always this type of job mindset that we approach a lot of our projects. I've worked 7 hours, therefore I've been hardworking, but maybe not so productive. So in your case, were there some maybe mindset shifts? Because you mentioned earlier that you didn't really have a mentor or anyone to articulate some of these transitions. But were there any kind of pivotal situations that happened that kind of helped you have a philosophy of some sort when it comes to approaching these projects that you sort of maybe keep on through your life? Or is it just, as you said, accidental premonitions? Do you have a system of work that you actually apply to your success?
My only system, I think, is faith.
What do you mean by that?
You have to have faith that your Creator has a bigger picture for you. And I think that is, if I look back at my journey, I was never so hell-bent about creating systems. Or it was more, I think, when you have, I think, ultimate faith in your Creator and your purpose for that, by Him or whatever, I think you begin to let go and let certain things take its course. And eventually you will see the doors open for you. You'll see them start opening for you. Yes, you must work hard. Yes, you must, there's a bit of luck. But you start seeing that you will make mistakes, and through those mistakes you create a system. So it's not just something that's put on a silver plate for you. Yes, there's a learning curve, but you must be able to accept that learning curve comes from putting you through situations you must endure to come right. people take it like, why did this happen to me, and why this and why that? This is wrong.
Yeah.
If you start having the policy that this is right, and this is all part of a bigger plan, you start going through, the right phase in terms of things just starting to fall in place.
My dad used to mention this aspect of patiently aggressive. It's almost like a double meaning to two extreme dualities, but they kind of coexist. And he used to say, like, when things are tough, you got to be patient, but then also you got to still be tenacious during that battle. But I'm just trying to see if that connects with this faith aspect.
Well, look, you must be aggressive in terms of chasing your goals, but patience for them to actualize. So you have to understand that, right? You have to be patient for the outcome, but not take your foot off the pedal to achieve it.
True.
So that's where you have to have that balance. Patience comes, as part of the whole journey to get to that outcome. But you have to go get.
Yeah.
You can't sit there and just think, everything's going to drop in your lap.
And take the hits with it, Was there anyone else? Where did you get this faith foundation from? Because honestly, I won't say everyone. I've never interviewed everyone, but I find a lot of us in our culture here do pay a lot of lip service to faith. And when I say faith in the aspects that we're talking about, but I find people quit so quickly on certain things that they say they're going to be committed to. Today, I'm going to start a business. 2 weeks later, it wasn't working out. So is there like some inspiration of where you got your faith from? Was it just something you naturally had inbuilt? Where do you think that originated from to actually even title it as faith and believe in holding on to that in your journey?
I think faith comes from experiences, right? And I think once you start, and this is what I keep saying, is you are where you're supposed to be. And if that's a guiding principle, where you are where you're supposed to be, then you have to have faith.
Yeah.
Now, when you say, where did it come from? When you just start seeing things happen, right? You start understanding there is something more powerful than you that is in control.
Yeah, I believe that.
And you also realize when the tough times come and the bad things happen, you have to be able to take that as part of your learning curve. It just doesn't happen overnight, is what I'm trying to tell you. You will have small issues happen, and from that it builds you up to something bigger in terms of learning.
Gotcha. That's interesting. It's really hitting home for me. I'm processing that. So in these two aspects of being president for the ZAM or for the chambers, were there any objectives or goals that you wanted to achieve that maybe you did achieve, and then were there any that you didn't achieve that you wish you had in these two positions?
Look, as president of Ndola Chamber, I think what I set out to do was to basically create value for that chamber and make sure that that it was something that people would be proud of being a member. And I think that was my first goal, which I think was achieved. The chamber movement before that had been in a bit of a mess in Ndola.
Yeah.
It had been dead for so many years, and there was a couple of guys who came together who put it back together, and then once to get it more structured, we moved on, and I think that was okay. That was a good, I think, and I say this, you are where you're supposed to be. I think that was a stepping stone for me to do what I did at ZAM, right?
Gotcha.
I think for ZAM, the realization was it was not just about Ndola, right? And I think I realized very quickly that was a chance for me to change something at a national level and build on an organization to give it some recognition in terms of its value to this country and where the country should be going, moving away from extractive industry. For me, I think, I don't know, there might be people out there with different opinions, but I feel ZAM progressed very well in terms of having a new identity, in terms of really having a big say in what happened in Zambia. And economically, I think we achieved a lot in terms of giving manufacturing its rightful space in terms of being the potential biggest job creator in this country. And I think the current government heard that and put a lot of reforms in place. And I think we are on a good track for manufacturing going forward for this country. Manufacturing, when you look at it, for every dollar you invest to the jobs you create is a higher margin than what an extractive industry does. The spin-offs, when you look at it in extractive industry, the spin-offs are backward integrated, where the suppliers to the mines have business. The mines have business up to a point where they sell the product and it goes out of the country. Manufacturers have a backward integration to the suppliers to the manufacturing industry, possibly buying from the mines, buying from the farmers, buying from everybody who makes something at a primary base, add value to it, and then sell it on to a distribution network that creates employment.
True.
So you're creating employment at maybe 3 or 4 levels. The primary level, which would be, for example, the fertilizer manufacturer, which is a manufacturer, the farmer who he supplies, the farmer sells his product to a manufacturer, manufacturer processes it, creates jobs, sells it to a distributor, creates jobs, distributor sells it to Temba, creates jobs. So that line of job value creation by a manufacturer sitting in the middle cannot be underrated in terms of economic transformation for this country. And that's why for me, it was about a national economic agenda. And we were, I think, honestly lucky that we've had, a lot of our proposals listened to, and it was easy to work, I think, with the government to make sure that things were done. So I think you've seen a lot of progress in the manufacturing sector, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. A lot of new industry, a lot of innovative industry. Who would have thought that we'd be manufacturing fertilizer in Zambia?
True.
And exporting it to our 4 or 5 neighboring countries that need it, out of the 9. Who would have thought that? We're self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Who would have seen, what's happening in other value-added industries, like what's happening with some of the prime industries that supply soya, what's happening in terms of paint industry, what's happening in other little spots around the country. Manufacturing, by creating one job in manufacturing, you're probably creating another 4 around you,
if not more. Yeah. And you feel the government is really bought into this concept? I know there's a lot of loose language around value addition, but sometimes I wonder, now that I'm getting into manufacturing, the capability needed to sustain that at the right level, as you said, has been quite challenging for me in some cases. But do you feel that there's Zambia, in terms of the population, have enough, I think we talked about it off the show, enough skill base, or you said it's a knowledge base, to be able to sustain the manufacturing vision that you...
Skills is a problem. And I think, we need to, maybe one thing that needs probably urgent intervention is creating a skills-based initiative for Zambia that moves away from this concept of, I must get a bachelor's degree. How many people do you have in this country that have a bachelor's degree and unemployed?
Too many.
But what we lack is people who are good with their hands.
Technical skills, yeah.
Technical skills. And that we're seeing is a gap that we need to really invest in. One, to supply the mines also, technical skills, to supply the manufacturing sector, right? Even to an extent, I think, to the farming sector.
Agreed.
Because mechanization has to come in. So I do believe that skills is probably our biggest challenge going forward as a country when it comes to, transforming ourselves.
Yeah.
Going from this, when you look at the aspect of people being educated, I'll tell you one thing about, and I was thinking about this the other day. I don't want to touch politics. When you look at Kaunda, free education, when we moved into manufacturing, if you look at from 1964 to I think 1979, and there were kids coming out of there with free education who had some, and even there was the technical schools dotted around the country. We benefited from that
100%.
Skills level. Then it disappeared in between. And now I think the aspect of bringing free education back, to at least, that will be felt in 10 years' time. But it's the right step. And I think those things, for us as in manufacturing, you need to have first a basic common education for the population. Then I think the strategy around creating skills for that. You can't have a skills school and somebody not being educated to feed into it.
True.
So you have to solve the problem from bottom to the end.
Yeah.
Right?
Gotcha. I was in Asia for 7 years, as you know, in Indonesia. And I was so inspired by their TVETA version, technical colleges. In fact, they're funded at a scale with machinery, equipment, and you had to do this, my father's favorite term, which is apprentice. You have to apprentice. Even I had to go through that apprenticeship. And I find that some of that's been missing on a national scale. I don't know if it's being introduced part of this free education concept, because we're running a boarding house. Some guys are coming through, for example, they're studying computer science at degree level. But some of them can't even operate a computer because they don't actually use them. They're just, I don't know, maybe theory concepts. So when they do come onto the workplace, I'm having to still educate them and train them on basic Excel and all these things. I don't know if you're finding that at scale, but for me, I just said, what are you doing at the degree level? The basics you should have had is at least a Cert 4 level competency with some of the core skills. I don't know, what's been your experience, and is this something that you think this aspect of free education can bridge?
Yeah, I think, you see, as I said, free education needs to create the resource base for technical schools. The problem we've had is that the few that maybe could afford to go through to even a degree level are not necessarily the brightest. And I'll tell you this story. I mean, even when I hire people, I don't hire looking at a degree.
Same.
I look at the ability to adapt. So that is, you with interaction with somebody, you see the ability to adapt is your key factor. You can have all the degrees in the world, but if you can't adapt in a changing world, you can't.
It's that change again.
I mean, when you talk about TVETA, I'll tell you, for me, and you talk about memories and building a factory, which I was the type of guy I wouldn't be shy to get grease on my hands or get. I remember being taught woodwork and metalwork in Form 1 at Kansenji Secondary. And those are skills that probably have lived with me on understanding simple, basic things that, have helped me.
Yeah.
If you ask me, I think that's helped me more. Probably that 1 year in metalwork has helped me more than being an accountant.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you.
And if we can bring certain skill, like you're saying, you don't know how to operate a computer. You're getting that kind of skill level at least back into the schools. They don't necessarily all need a metalworking machine or a woodworking machine, right? Or a lathe or something. You need to introduce different stuff into the schools, and I think it's going to take time. But we have to look at the next 10 years what we need.
Welcome to Luna Lifestyle TV. You didn't know you needed us until now. It's lifestyle, but we make it legendary. From smoothie goals to the core that scores. We're not just here to show you how to live better. We're here to make you say, wait a minute, do people actually do that? Wellness meets weirdly specific goals, and your vibe meets your tribe. You have now entered the Luna Kitchen. Side effects may include an appeased appetite and the desire to do it yourself. So go on, live light, live bold, live Luna.
I should have turned this on long ago.
Just a few last questions, moving a little bit away from the professional side of it. And we touched on this off the show about legacy. What does legacy look like for you? I mean, you've created what I would call a great brand that will definitely outlive you, I hope. And there may be things people associate with Aquavita, maybe don't know who the man is behind the idea or the brand. But are there things that you maybe think about at this stage of your career where you're thinking, I would love to be remembered for this, or these are maybe the few words that I would love people to think
Funny,
through?
not that I was coming for this, but I was thinking about that in the shower today.
Okay.
You know, legacy is, I always say this, is, you know, people are so driven by, I think, wealth creation, but I've always said that, you know, for me personally, did you change someone's life? Even as an individual or as in your company or your brand, did you positively affect somebody's life? And I think that's the legacy you want to leave behind. Even as ZAM president, did I do something positive for this country? Aquavita will maybe outlive me or whatever. I mean, if you think about it, you know, you look at industries and you see, do you remember Steve Jobs or do you remember Apple? What's really impacted your life? Do you remember, even further, do you remember Steve Jobs or do you remember Einstein? Where does the impact in people's lives lie and to what extent? So when we create even products and you talk about legacy, products are transient. Whatever we create, if you look at maybe things like the way things are going, a diesel engine will be forgotten in 5 years.
True.
Or 7 years. So whatever we create, legacy must not be associated to a product, because it will always be superseded by something else. But if you have touched someone's life in some way, where you have, if you know, in some positive way, or if you've done something for this country in a positive way, that's something that should outlive you. I couldn't actually, you know, if in my grave, whether Aquavita lives for another 20, 30 years as a legacy is not what I'd want to be known by. I would rather, you know, have my kids remember a good father. Those are legacies. Products are transient, they're materialistic. You create, you earn, you let go, you bury. It's nothing that you can hold on to for the rest of your life and beyond your lifetime.
That's powerful stuff. That is powerful stuff. Couple of things, and I'm sure people are curious to know, what does an average day look like for you now, that you're in this phase of your career?
I mean, look, I mean, it's depending where I am, right? I mean, it depends in terms of getting up in the morning. I'm an early riser, like 5:30. Catching up on, people look at social media as a way of catching up on gossip. But if you structure your social media well, you catch up a lot on what's happening in the world. And that's my first hour or so, in terms of not watching people's Facebook pages, but watching or reading about developments of the previous day that show up, countrywide, worldwide. Then, it's an exercise routine. Then it's to work. And generally, I used to be at work at like 6:37. Now it's 8:00, and work through the day, and maybe be home 6:30, thereabouts. And it's just a relaxing evening and catching up with other stuff, like there's other work in different time zones before going to bed.
Yeah.
Okay. But I don't over push myself anymore. You be aggressive in that time slot that you're awake, and be patient for the results like you put out later.
Yeah. Yeah, it's qualitative versus quantity. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Okay. Okay, so maybe just a couple of questions people might be curious about. We call this the quick fire round.
Oh, no. I didn't know that was coming.
Well, someone very clever invented it. It wasn't me, I can tell you that. But just a couple in case you're curious. Like, for example, I'll give you one we've already experienced today. It's tea or coffee. You say tea or coffee, whichever you prefer. Morning, nights, just what your preference is. Then who's the man behind some of these... some people call them nuances. I like to call them idiosyncrasies sometimes. Depends what they are. So any that you want to mention, you can. If any you don't worry about it. Just say skip. So, you ready? All right, let's kick it off. Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Okay.
Indian tea.
We're not friends anymore. No, just kidding. Okay, good. Morning or night?
Morning.
Morning. Suit or jeans?
Sorry?
Suit or jeans?
Tough one. Jeans.
It's jeans. Okay. Book or movie?
Movie. I don't read books.
Funny. I don't know why I thought you were quite a bookworm. Okay. City or bush?
City or bush? City.
City. Okay. One word your friends use to describe you?
Reliable.
Biggest fear, if any?
Nothing. No, I don't have any fears.
Lack of faith, I thought you would say. Okay, no fears, good. This one I was curious. Favorite Zambian meal?
Favorite Zambian meal? It would have to be fisashi.
Wow, definitely from Chifubu. One person you'd still love to meet, if alive or dead, I guess.
One person I would still love to
or would love to meet in your lifetime.
No, then that would be asking for something, If you live a life of gratitude, you don't ask.
You've hit some gems today. Love that. Okay, a quote you live by, if any?
Well, it's not a quote I live by, but I think it's a quote I've become a bit... that I gave it a lecture once, for a mentorship lecture for some kids. And I said... I've even forgotten it now.
Okay.
It goes... I have to remember it now. Can you imagine?
You send it to me. I think.
Let's keep your circle small.
Uh-huh.
And your network big.
Keep your circle small and your network big. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So what it means is those that you trust and know you can rely on day in, day out, your family and your close friends, is keep your circle small. But never stop from keeping your network big, because that's where your opportunities will come from.
I like that. I might steal that one as well.
That's patented.
Excellent. Trademarked. So is there anything maybe just in closing that you'd like our viewers to know about you that maybe they don't know about you? And or something maybe I haven't mentioned that you'd like them to know, or things you might be working on that would be of interest for them to follow you on some of these pages that you're on?
I'm not on any pages.
Okay. But you're on Facebook, so I was like, must at least have some views on
I
this.
don't post stuff like unnecessarily.
Yeah, okay.
No, I mean, I don't really have any. I mean, it's been good to be here, and you know, I think, you know, there's a lot I think that you would see that you have to realize that what you do has to be for the greater good. And I think that's basically what, you know, within anyone or everyone, you have to look back at trying to do something better, not just for yourself, but I think for those that may directly or indirectly be better off because of what you did. So I think it's just mindset change. What my biggest fear for Zambia is I don't want to use the word, but maybe it is the right word, is the sense of entitlement. And we're living through a generation, I think, or maybe for a while, that expects things to just happen without hard work. And I think that's where, if we can fix that, you can do with your skills and everything else, but if we can fix that, I think this country is going to be something really amazing.
I totally agree. I call that the give me mentality, you know. No, well, I think safe to say, definitely would love to have you back on the show. There's a couple of, for me, philosophical pointers you mentioned that just kind of enhanced some of the questions I couldn't quite answer for myself, in terms of how does someone kind of develop through time and space in the Zambian context. Because as you know, there's different countries, different challenges everywhere, but when you come to Zambia, it's got its own cocktail of things to go through. But how do you keep steady in your course? And I think one of the biggest things I've got out of your leadership style is, it may not be measured by necessarily the product or the things we build, but also having this foundation of faith that things are going to work out, and whatever happens doesn't happen to you, but happens for you. I think it's kind of how I'm summarizing what you said. So I'd love to expand on that one of these days,
well,
maybe off the record. So ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, Mr. ASHU SAGAR, and very, very ASHU SAGAR, and I'm very, very inspired by some of the philosophies that came out today. I think I speak for a lot of people, and I think a lot of people have got a better insight, not just behind the Aquavito brand, but also the gentleman who's driving that and some of the great works you're doing outside that. So I'd say God bless you, and thank you so much for having a focus on manufacturing. I personally am a big advocate for that. I think it'll make a difference. And one of the big takeaways I think we've all got is the impact it has across job creation and other sectors, more than maybe say just the standard end users that we usually try and focus on. So Mr. SAGAR, thank you so much for being on the show and for allowing us the time to go behind the scenes with you.
Thank you.
Just want to give you a handshake on that.
Thank you.
And definitely, hopefully, we get you on the show again.
That'll be great.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. So thank you very much, guys, and God bless.